Star map. Shade opened his eyes as if he'd just blinked and saw Zephyr looking down at him. "Oh," he said, "I thought I'd fallen asleep." The albino bat laughed. "You did. You slept through the whole day. The sun's just gone down." Shade frowned. It seemed he'd just closed his eyes, but he certainly felt refreshed and alert. He remembered the tear in his wing and looked. The berry oil had formed a pale opaque film over it, and the pain was now only a dim ache. "I guess that plant stuff really works," he said, tentatively flexing his wing. "Where's Marina?" "Down at the cathedral. She wanted to look at the humans." Zephyr pointed the way to a wide shaft in the center of the floor. "What do they do down there?" Shade asked a little uncertainly. He'd never seen a human. "They meet here in the evening sometimes. They talk and sing. I believe they pray as well. Go see if you like." Shade lit from the stone ledge where he'd slept and circled the spire several times to test his wing. A little stiff and sore on the downstroke, but not bad at all. He cautiously spiraled down the shaft and felt like he'd entered the belly of a giant beast. Never had he been inside such a colossal space. Huge pillars stretched from the floor to the vaulted ceiling. High windows glinted darkly in the walls. Cold seeped across his wings. Suspended above the floor on long chains were lights in circular metal holders. He thought of the promise, that ring of light, and felt impatient. There was so much he wanted to know. Beneath the lights were humans, sitting in neat rows, all facing a raised platform on which stood a single male in robes. Shade kept his distance up near the rafters, shooting out quick tendrils of sound. So this is what they looked like. Of course, they had been described to him by his mother, and there were always stories going around. But they were huge, much taller than he expected. Their limbs were thick and powerful. What was it like, he wondered, not to fear anything? To never be scanning the horizon all the time, even when you ate, making sure nothing was sneaking up on you. They were wingless, of course. He stared at their backs and shoulders quite a long time, just to make sure. He felt a quick pang of pity. How horrible to be stuck on the ground your whole life, where other creatures got to soar above you. He couldn't imagine not flying. He supposed he shouldn't feel sorry for them, though. Maybe they didn't mind. Anyway, he remembered Frida once saying they had metal machines that let them fly. They had machines for practically everything, it seemed. They were geniuses. He found Marina intently watching the humans. She didn't look at him as she roosted beside her. "I never seen so many all in one place," she breathed, a look of anticipation on her face, as if something wondrous was about to happen. Suddenly the humans all stood and began speaking in unison, their deep, slow voices filling the cathedral. What were they saying? Strange music spiraled crazily from a set of pipes high in the loft. Shade wished he understood what it all meant. The humans' intense concentration charged the air, and Shade's fur lifted. "I want to go to them," Marina said, and Shade was stirred by the longing in her face. He twitched his nose awkwardly. He didn't feel her passion, and it bothered him. The band. It was all to do with the band, and he didn't have one. "After my colony left me," she said, "I was always looking for the two humans who banded me. Once I thought I saw them. It was stupid. I mean, it's not as if I got a good look at them, but I flew toward them anyway, and it was just like with the bats. They were scared. They waved their arms and shouted and covered their faces." She gave a quick laugh. "Not exactly overjoyed to see me." "Not all humans are the same," Zephyr said, fluttering down to them. "The ones who gave the bands will not fear you." "If we ever find them," said Marina. The humans stopped talking and stood in silence. "Are they praying now?" Shade asked Zephyr. "I think so." It was baffling. What did they have to pray for? Didn't they already have everything they needed? "They're fighting a war of their own, you know," Zephyr said. Shade looked at him in amazement. "With the beasts?" "I suppose it is." "The birds are too small." "Apes? Is it apes or maybe the wolves? I've heard stories about how strong—" "It's with one another, as far as I can gather." Humans fighting humans. It was mind-blogging. "Why?" "That I don't know. The fighting takes place far away. But that needn't concern you now. What does is the pigeons. They're looking for you." "Here?"
Oh, don't worry. They don't dare land on the cathedral. They seem more afraid of the gargoyles than ever.
They come to life, that's what some of them think, Shade said.
It was real bats who killed those 2 soldiers last night.
Who are they?
I don't know them.
The albino bat seemed troubled.
I've only heard them as they crossed the city. They're strangers, and I don't think they've been here long. But they've set something fearful in motion.
Shade knew he meant the owls closing the skies. And he was right. That spelled danger for every single bat alive.
But why did the bats attack?
Asked Marina.
Why shouldn't they?
Shade said with a snort.
Look what the pigeons nearly did to us! And the owls burning down our roost, killing my father. They've got it coming.
You may be right, said Zephyr. But this could turn into a war. And war's nothing to hope for.
Shade grunted. But what if war was the only way? Zephyr couldn't know everything. Frida said they couldn't win against the birds, but what about these 2 giant bats? If they were enough of them...
Well, I feel a whole lot better when we put the city behind us, said Marina. So, as soon as Boy Wonder here figures out where we're going...
She looked at Shade expectantly. He sighed. He knew he'd found the right tower, and the cross matched perfectly. But he also knew somehow it wasn't enough. There was one more piece of the puzzle, and without it, he had nothing. From beyond the cathedral's stone walls came a muted clang, and Shade's ears pricked. Bong. Then another. Bong. It was the same sound they'd heard last night from the pigeon's tower. The wrong tower, but still, Shade was sure this was the sound from his mother's map.
What's that for?
He asked Zephyr urgently.
It's how the humans measure time. 1 clang for every hour.
Bong. Bong. He summoned up its mother's sound map, that clanging noise. How many times had it sounded in his mind? 7? Yes, definitely 7. And last night he'd only heard 3. Bong. Bong. That made 6 so far. Shade waited breathlessly, and then came a final bong. 7 bongs. This was the right time, and this tower was the right place. In his mind, the spire and the cross beckoned to him with new urgency.
Come on!
He yelled to Marina. Without explaining, he beat his way back up the shaft into the spire, and then out through a gargoyle's throat. He flew through the gaping jaws and swirled to the very top of the spire. Marina and Zephyr were in far behind.
I think I understand,
he told Marina.
My mother gave me the time and the place I'm supposed to be, so I can chart a new course by the stars.
Shade hung upside down from the horizontal bar of the cross. Lucky it was a clear night. Stars were strewn across the sky. His mother's sound map was very precise. He had to be in the very center of the cross. He shuffled over. A circle of hollow metal ringed the junction. A cross inside a circle. He recognized the image now. Within the circle, the heavens were divided into 4 quadrants.
So, what are we looking for?
He heard Marina ask. A string of stars drifted through the 3 of the quadrants. Which one did he want? He conjured up the sound map once more. Stars. The skies divided into 4. 1 star flying brighter than all the others, surging toward him. The top right quadrant. That's where he should look. And there it was, right where his mother had sung it. A bright star. Their star.
I've got it!
He shouted, pointing with his wingtip.
All we've got to do is fly straight for it. Easy, huh?
Following stars is a tricky business, said Zephyr. They move, you know.
They do?
Of course they did. Stupid. He knew that, but had forgotten all the excitement. The stars weren't simply fixed in the sky. His mother explained how they moved around in a circle every night, finishing where they started. But that was all he knew. He hadn't learned star navigation yet.
I think I can handle it,
said Marina. Shade grimaced. He'd cracked the puzzle, and now Marina got to do the rest.
Well, we'll have to take our bearings the same time every night, she said, glancing at the glow on the west horizon. Just a bit after sundown. We won't have that bonging sound to tell us once we leave the city.
You have to learn to measure time in your head, Zephyr told them. Your bodies know very well how much time has passed with each wing beat. The stars move at a fixed rate. Once you know that, you'll be able to check your course throughout the night, using that same star as a guide.
Oh, sure, I get it now, said Shade breezily. He gazed through the cross. It seemed awfully difficult.
You'll manage, said the keeper of the spire. Between the two of you.
Shade looked out across the city and shivered in the sharp air. It wasn't safe anymore, the night. The pigeons would be searching for him and Marina. The thought of setting out again filled him with weariness. Who knew how long it would be before they caught up with the others? He wished for a moment. He could simply stay here at the spire with Zephyr. It wouldn't be so bad. It was safe and obviously warm enough through the winter. And they were sure to learn an awful lot. Zephyr seemed to know almost as much as Frida.
You'd best set off now, Silverwing, Zephyr said gently.
Yes, said Shade gratefully. Of course he had to keep going.
Follow that star of yours,
Zephyr told him, and tilted his chin up so he seemed to be looking right at it.
You can see it?
Shade asked.
With my ears,
replied the old bat simply. Shade whistled in disbelief.
How could you hear the stars? It was impossible. They were too far away.
When you lose one sense, you develop the others many times over, Zephyr said. And how do you know you couldn't hear the stars, if only you paid enough attention to them? It's just a question of practice and perseverance.
I suppose,
said Shade. He made a mental note to try to listen harder to things.
I see things inside here too,
said the albino bat, gesturing with a white claw to his head.
Like what?
said Marina.
The past, the future. It's all a question of echoes. If you listen, you can still hear the reverberations of things just happened. Just a second ago. An hour ago. If you listen very hard indeed, you can still hear things that happened last winter. Or 10 winters ago. As if they were right before your eyes. It's the same with the future. Everything has a sound. And it's just a matter of time before it reaches you. But if you have very good hearing, you can hear it coming from a long way off.
Can you see if we catch up with the colony?
Shade asked impulsively. How could he not ask? The albino bat hunched over slightly and froze in intense concentration. His tall pointed ears reached upward, flared wide. Then, with a sigh, he spread his pale wings as if they would somehow help him trap sound. As Shade watched silently, the underside of his wings seemed to darken. Shade blinked, wondering if his eyes were playing tricks on him. Maybe the paleness of Zephyr's flesh was somehow weirdly reflecting the sky. But the wings definitely seemed to be turning black and then sparkling when Zephyr suddenly wrapped them over his head, cloaking himself. It will be like a journey's, difficult, and not what you expect. His voice sounded distant, uncertain. You'll meet an unexpected ally, but beware of metal on wings, and you will find hibernaculum. Shade's heart leaped, but Zephyr's voice was far from joyous as he continued. But others are searching for it too. Powerful forces, and I can see who will reach it first, or whether what they bring is good or bad. And your father, Cassiel.
What? Shade exclaimed. What about him?
The albino bat hesitated a moment before saying,
He's alive.
Zephyr stopped and his head reappeared. He quickly folded his wings back.
I can't hear any more. The echoes are so faint and confused.
But couldn't you see where?
The albino bat shook his head regretfully.
Only that he's far away.
Alive,
Shade muttered in amazement. Deep in his heart, he'd always hoped it was true. His mother and Frida were wrong. Cassia had just disappeared, but where? He looked restlessly into the sky.
So, goodbye, Zephyr said, and good luck.
Thank you, Shade said. He lit from the spire, circling with Marina. And thanks for fixing my wing too, and everything else.
Goodbye,
called Marina over her wing. They flew high, eager to get clear of the rooftops and the pigeons that roosted there. Marina suggested they split up the sky between them to make sure they didn't miss anything. Shade tried to calm his mind. His father, alive. Impossible as it was, he knew he had to concentrate. He forced all his senses together as one. He sniffed, he listened, he scanned the night for any sign of birds. When they were far above the highest towers, and the whole glorious, gleaming city was spread before them, they leveled off. Shade found his guiding star and pointed his nose toward it.
"Did you see the underside of Zephyr's wings?"
he asked hesitantly.
"I was just wondering if it was just a thing with the light,"
Marina said eagerly.
"Me too, but I don't think it was it?"
he asked. There was a silence.
"You saw it too, didn't you?"
Marina asked. Shade nodded.
"His wings got dark underneath."
"Yes," she said. "They were black as night, and they were filled with stars."
Goth looked down over the glittering lights. He'd been circling with Throbb for over an hour, gradually spiraling out toward the city's edges, searching for bats. They'd seen none. Did bats even exist this far north? It was a sickening thought. What if they didn't? How would he find a guide? How would he get home? He'd had a dream just before sunset. He was back in the jungle, glorying in the heat, and suddenly, all around him were hundreds of bats. Not his own kind, but small bats, the smallest he'd ever seen, flying joyful circles around him, chanting his name. What are they doing here? He wondered, but he was overcome with a feeling of triumph. Until the giant trees and vines and ferns of the jungle suddenly toppled over, and all around were walls, human walls, and behind one of them stood the man, smiling at him. Goth shook his head. It was rare for him to dream, and he'd learned that it was always important, a way for Zods to speak to him. What did it mean?
"Look!" Throbb hissed. "Down there!"
Goth peered down through the sky and smiled with relief. Bats.